people think? Why do they behave the way they do? Why do some people manipulate you? Why do you sometimes make wrong decisions? Robert Greene says, if you understand human nature, understand human psychology, then you can read anyone, understand anyone, and most importantly, understand yourself too. Today, I'm going to tell you the complete story of Robert Greene's masterpiece book, The Laws of Human Nature. 18 laws that explain human nature, that will teach you how people work, how emotions work, how power dynamics work, and how you can use all of this to your advantage. This book will change your life, change your relationships, and make you a master manipulator, but in a good way. Welcome to Story Reads, and I'm your friend who brought you a book today that will give you real power to understand people. Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature. Robert Greene is the same author who wrote the 48 Laws of Power, and this book is even deeper, even more powerful. In this book, Robert has explained 18 laws, 18 patterns that exist in every human being, no matter who they are, from any country, any culture. These laws are timeless, and if you understand them, you'll learn to read people, like reading a book. Today, I'm going to tell you about these 18 laws in detail. Let me start with law number 1. Master your emotional self. The law of irrationality. Master your emotional self. The law of irrationality. Robert Greene says we all think we're rational, logical, that we make our decisions thoughtfully. But the truth is, we're all emotional creatures. Most of our decisions are driven by emotions. Then we justify them with logic. Robert says understanding this is very important, that we're emotional and emotions control us. Because until you understand this, you'll be a slave to your emotions. But when you understand, when you accept that, yes, I'm emotional, then you can observe your emotions, notice them, and control them. Robert teaches one technique. Whenever you're about to make an important decision, stop. Ask yourself, am I emotional right now? Am I angry, frustrated, excited? And if yes, then wait. Postpone the decision. Take it when you're calm. This simple technique can save you from many mistakes. Now comes law number 2. Transform self-love into empathy. The law of narcissism. Transform self-love into empathy. The law of narcissism. Robert says we're all a little narcissistic, meaning we all love ourselves. Think about ourselves. This is natural. This is a survival mechanism. But the problem happens when it becomes extreme, when we only think about ourselves, don't consider others. Then we become toxic narcissists, and such people are very dangerous because they only think about themselves, use others, manipulate them, and when the work is done, they leave. Robert says you need to learn to identify narcissists. How? Here are some signs. Narcissists always talk about themselves. They always turn the conversation toward themselves. They can't handle criticism. If you criticize them even slightly, they become defensive or aggressive. They don't show empathy, can't understand others' feelings, or don't want to. And the biggest thing, they're very charming. Initially, they impress you, make you feel special, but all this is fake, just to manipulate you. Robert's advice is stay away from narcissists as much as possible because they'll drain you emotionally, mentally, and physically. Now, let me tell you how you can transform your narcissism into empathy. Robert says empathy is the most powerful skill. If you can understand others, feel their feelings, then you can influence them, lead them, and genuinely connect. To develop empathy, you need to do active listening. When someone talks to you, really listen. Don't just keep thinking about your reply. Watch their body language, listen to their tone, feel the emotions behind their words, and then respond. Practice this every day, and slowly your empathy will grow. Law number 3, see through people's masks. The law of role-playing. See through people's masks. The law of role-playing. Robert Greene says we all wear masks, social masks. We don't show what we really are. We show what we want to show, or what's expected by society. For example, at office, you wear a professional mask. At home, a family mask. With friends, a cool mask. All this is normal, but the problem happens when we think others' masks are real, when we forget this is just an act, and then we get disappointed when those people turn out different. Robert's advice is always remember people are wearing masks, and you need to learn to see behind those masks. How? Watch actions, not words. What people say is often lies, but what they do is truth. Watch patterns. One-time behavior can be coincident, but repeated pattern is character. And most importantly, watch behavior under stress. When people are under pressure, under stress, then their real face comes out. Then the mask falls. Robert says if you really want to know someone, watch them in a difficult situation. There, you'll know who they are. Now, let me tell you one more important thing. Understand your own mask too. Robert says you also wear masks, and that's okay. But you should be aware that this is a mask, not your real self. And sometimes you should also know how to take off the mask, especially in close relationships. Because if you always wear the mask, you'll never genuinely connect, never be vulnerable. And vulnerability brings real connection. Law number 4, determine the strength of people's character. The law of compulsive behavior. Determine the strength of people's character. The law of compulsive behavior. Robert says people's character shows in patterns, compulsive patterns. These are behaviors people do repeatedly, without thinking, automatically. For example, some people are always late at every meeting, every appointment. This is their pattern. This is part of their character. Some people always blame others, circumstances, never take responsibility themselves. This is also a pattern. Robert says if you want to understand someone's character, watch their patterns. Watch their compulsive behaviors, because these don't change. These are deep-rooted from childhood, from past experiences, and these predict future behavior. If someone betrayed you in the past, chances are they'll do it again. If someone helped you in difficult times in the past, chances are they'll do it again. Robert's famous line is, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Now comes the big question. Can people change? Robert says technically yes, but practically very difficult, because patterns are very deep, and to change requires a lot of effort, self-awareness, and most people don't have that. So Robert's advice is don't try to change people. Accept them as they are. Or if you can't accept, then exit the relationship. But don't think you'll change someone, because 99% of cases, it doesn't happen. Law number 5, become an elusive object of desire. The law of covetousness. Become an elusive object of desire. The law of covetousness. Robert Greene says we humans always want what we don't have, what's difficult, what's far away, and what comes easily loses value. This is human psychology. Robert calls this the grass is always greener syndrome. The grass on the other side always looks greener. Understanding this is very important because you can use this to your advantage. But let me tell you, this is about balance. You shouldn't become completely unavailable either, because then people will think you're arrogant or uninterested. You need to be a little available, but also a little elusive, a little mysterious. Robert says this is an art, and it can be learned through practice. Observe which people are more desired, how they behave, how they communicate, and learn from them. Robert says if you want people to value you, desire you, then you need to be a little elusive, a little mysterious. Don't be too available. Don't be there for everyone all the time. Maintain your value, make your time valuable, and let people chase you a little. This works in relationships and professional life too. If you say yes to every project, show up at every meeting, then people start taking you for granted. But if you're selective, if your time is valuable, then people respect you, value you. Law number 6, elevate your perspective. The law of short-sightedness. Elevate your perspective. The law of short-sightedness. Robert says most people think short-term, want immediate gratification, want instant results. And this is the biggest mistake, because things that are truly valuable, truly impactful, build in the long term. Robert gives an example. Let's say you get 2 options. One job that gives you more money immediately, but no growth. And one job that pays less initially, but lots of learning, skills development, big opportunities in future. Most people will choose the first option because they're thinking short term. But smart people will choose the second option because they're thinking long term. Now, let me tell you one more important thing. Detachment. Robert says you need to learn to emotionally detach from situations. This doesn't mean you don't care. This means you don't get so attached that you can't think objectively. When you're detached, you can see the bigger picture, see patterns, and make smarter decisions. Robert himself practices this. He looks at every situation from above, like an observer, and that's why he can give such deep insights. Robert's advice is when making every decision, think about long-term consequences. Don't just think, what will I get now? Also think, what will happen in 5 years, 10 years? This perspective will help you make better decisions. Robert teaches another technique. Remember mortality. Remember, you have limited time, and this time needs to be used wisely. When you remember this, your priorities become clear. You understand what's important and what's not, and then you make better choices. Law number 7, soften people's resistance by confirming their self-opinion. The law of defensiveness. Soften people's resistance by confirming their self-opinion. The law of defensiveness. Robert Greene says every human has a self-image inside, an idea of who I am, and they protect this image aggressively. If someone challenges this image or threatens it, they become defensive, resistant, and then you can't influence them. So Robert's strategy is first validate their self-image, confirm it, and then slowly present your point. For example, let's say you need to suggest a new idea to your boss, but your boss is a little insecure. If you go directly and say, this is wrong, this is the right way, then boss will become defensive and reject your idea. But if you first praise boss's past achievements, acknowledge their expertise, and then say, I got an idea that could take your vision further, then boss will be receptive because you validated their self-image, didn't threaten them. Robert says this is a very powerful technique and can be used in every situation, in relationships, in negotiations, in sales, in leadership, everywhere. The key is understanding the other person's self-image and validating it. Then they'll open up to you, become receptive, and you can influence them. Law number 8. Change your circumstances by changing your attitude. The law of self-sabotage. Change your circumstances by changing your attitude. The law of self-sabotage. Robert Greene says many people are their own worst enemies. They sabotage themselves without knowing, unconsciously. How? Through negative thinking, self-doubt, procrastination, bad habits. And then they blame luck, circumstances, others. But the truth is, they're responsible. Robert says this pattern comes from childhood, from past experiences. When you were small and you were told repeatedly that you're not good enough, you can't do anything, then this belief settles inside you. And then you unconsciously do things that confirm this belief.
Robert's advice is first recognize your patterns. Observe when you sabotage yourself, when you think negatively, when you procrastinate, and then break these patterns consciously, deliberately. Robert teaches one technique. Whenever you have a negative thought, catch it and replace it with a positive thought. Initially, this will seem difficult, but with practice, it becomes a habit, and slowly your attitude changes. And when attitude changes, circumstances also change. Now, let me tell you one more important point. Take responsibility. Robert says until you take responsibility for your life, you'll remain powerless. But when you say, yes, I'm responsible, my life is the result of my choices, then you become empowered. Because if your choices created this situation, then your choices can also change it. This realization is very powerful, and it can change your entire life.
Law number 9, confront your dark side. The law of repression. Confront your dark side. The law of repression. Robert Greene says every human has a dark side inside. Negative emotions, aggressive thoughts, selfish desires, and we repress all of this, suppress it, because society taught us these are bad, these are wrong. But Robert says when you repress something, it doesn't disappear. It stays inside you, in the unconscious, and then it comes out in unexpected ways, in anger outbursts, in passive-aggressive behavior, or in self-destructive patterns. Robert's advice is accept your dark side. Acknowledge it. That yes, I also have these emotions inside, and this is normal. This is human. When you accept this, you can control it, channel it, use it in productive ways. Robert teaches one technique, shadow work. In this, you consciously explore your dark side, journal, do therapy, and understand where these patterns came from. And then you integrate them into your personality in a healthy way.
Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a lot of anger inside, which you repress because you think anger is bad. But then this anger comes out over small things, in traffic, at home, at office, and you can't control it. But if you acknowledge this anger, understand where it's coming from, maybe from childhood, maybe from past trauma, and then express it in a healthy way, like at the gym, in boxing, or in some creative outlet, then you can control it, and it won't dominate you. Now, let me tell you about law number 10. Beware the fragile ego, the law of envy. Beware the fragile ego, the law of envy. Robert Greene says envy is one of the most dangerous emotions, and the most common too. Every human has envy inside. Some people admit it, most don't, but it's inside everyone. Envy happens when we see others, and they have something we don't. Success, wealth, beauty, talent, relationships, anything. And we feel bad. We want to have that too, or we want them not to have it. Robert says envy is a very toxic emotion because it consumes you, eats you from inside. And the worst thing is envious people hide their envy. They show they're your friends, well-wishers, but inside they're burning from your success. And the moment they get a chance, they try to bring you down. Passive-aggressive comments, spreading rumors, sabotaging your projects. Robert says you need to identify envious people because they're very dangerous. Let me tell you some signs of envious people. First sign is excessive praise. When someone praises you too much, over the top, be careful, because often this is fake. Inside, they're jealous. Second sign is backhanded compliments.
Like, you did great work considering you didn't have resources. Or, you're so smart, I didn't know. These aren't compliments, these are subtle insults. Third sign is they always compare themselves to you and always try to prove they're better. Fourth sign is they're secretly happy at your failures, even if they show sympathy outside. Robert's advice is stay away from envious people as much as possible. And if you have to work with them or interact with them, be very careful. Downplay your success. Be humble and don't threaten them. Robert says one more important thing. Recognize your own envy too, because we all have it. And when you recognize it, you can control it. Transform it into admiration, into motivation, into desire to learn. This is the healthy approach. Now comes law number 11. Know your limits. The law of grandiosity. Know your limits. The law of grandiosity. Robert Greene says when people become successful, when they get a little power, a little fame, then grandiosity comes inside them. Meaning they start thinking they're very big. They think they're special. Rules don't apply to them. They can do anything. And this is the biggest mistake. Because this grandiosity blinds them. They disconnect from reality, become overconfident, and then make big mistakes and fall.
Robert gives many historical examples. Napoleon, Hitler, a phase of Steve Jobs. All these people were very successful, but then grandiosity came inside them, and they fell. Robert says success is the biggest test, because success intoxicates you. You feel you're invincible. But you're not. You're human. You have limits, and if you forget this, you'll fall. Robert's advice is stay humble, always, no matter how much success you get. Remember your limits, remember your weaknesses, and always keep learning, keep growing. Robert teaches one technique, negative visualization. In this, you regularly visualize what could happen if everything goes wrong, if you fail, if you lose everything. This keeps you grounded, keeps you humble, and also keeps you prepared. Robert himself practices this and says this helps him stay successful long term. Now let me tell you about law number 12. Reconnect to the masculine or feminine within you. The law of gender rigidity. Reconnect to the masculine or feminine within you. The law of gender rigidity. Robert Greene says every human has both masculine and feminine energies inside, whether they're a man or woman. Masculine energy means aggressive, assertive, logical, focused. And feminine energy means empathetic, intuitive, creative, nurturing. But society taught us that men should only be masculine and women should only be feminine. And this is very limiting. Robert says the most powerful people are those who balance both energies, who have situational awareness, when to use masculine energy and when feminine. For example, a great leader needs both. Sometimes you need to be decisive, make tough decisions. This is masculine energy. But sometimes you need to be empathetic, understand the team, motivate them. This is feminine energy. Robert says if you're stuck in just one energy, you're limited. But if you can access both, you're complete, powerful. Robert's advice is explore both energies inside you. Develop them. If you're more masculine, then also develop the feminine side. Creativity, empathy, intuition. And if you're more feminine, then also develop the masculine side. Assertiveness, logic, focus. This balance will make you more versatile, more effective in every situation. Law number 13. Advance with a sense of purpose. The law of aimlessness. Advance with a sense of purpose. The law of aimlessness. Robert Greene says most people live aimlessly,
No clear purpose, no direction, just day to day. Do job, get salary, enjoy weekend, and repeat. And then one day they realize life passed and nothing was achieved, no meaning found. Robert says this is the biggest tragedy, living a life that's purposeless.
Robert's advice is find your purpose. Find your why. Why do you exist? What's that thing that makes you passionate, that wakes you up in the morning, that excites you? And when you find your purpose, go after it, relentlessly, passionately. Robert says a life with purpose is very different. It's focused, meaningful, and successful too. Because when you have clear purpose, all your energy goes in that direction. Distractions reduce and you see results. Let me give you Robert's personal example. Robert had a passion for writing since childhood, for reading books, for reading history, and he made this his purpose, that I'll write books that give people power, knowledge. And he dedicated his whole life to this purpose, struggled for many years, faced rejection, but never quit. And today, Robert Greene is one of the most influential authors in the world. This is the power of purpose.
Now comes law number 14. Resist the downward pull of the group. The law of conformity. Resist the downward pull of the group. The law of conformity. Robert Greene says we're all social animals. We like to belong, like to be part of a group, and this is natural. But the problem is groups have a tendency toward mediocrity, toward the lowest common denominator. Because in a group, everyone has to move together. And if someone gets too far ahead or becomes too different, the group pulls them back, pulls them down. Robert says this is very subtle. The group doesn't directly stop you, but it pressures you to conform, to be the same. And if you resist, if you become different, they criticize you, judge you, exclude you. And this is very painful because we all want acceptance, want to belong. But Robert's advice is you need to bear this pain if you want to become extraordinary. If you want to follow your purpose, you need to resist the group's pressure. Robert teaches one technique. Create your own reality distortion field, meaning create your own world, your own values, your own standards, and follow them no matter what the world says. Steve Jobs did this. Elon Musk does this. They ignore the group's pressure and follow their vision. And this is what makes them extraordinary. Robert says this isn't easy, but it's necessary if you want to avoid mediocrity. Law number 15, make them want to follow you. The law of fickleness. Make them want to follow you. The law of fickleness. Robert Greene says people are very fickle, meaning their loyalty isn't constant. Today they're with you, tomorrow with someone else. Today you're a hero, tomorrow a villain. This is human nature. People get bored quickly, move on quickly. So if you're a leader or influencer or in any position where you need people's loyalty, you need to understand this loyalty needs to be earned, maintained every day.
Robert says the biggest mistake is thinking people will follow you because you're the boss, or because of your position, or because you did something in the past. No, people follow you because you inspire them, because you create value for them, because they feel connected to you. Robert says great leaders are those who don't lead through authority. They lead through charisma, through vision, through inspiration. Robert tells some qualities of great leaders. First is authenticity. They're real, genuine, not fake. Second is empathy. They understand their followers, understand their needs. Third is vision. They have a clear vision, where we're going, why we're going. Fourth is consistency. They're consistent in their actions, in their values. And fifth is sacrifice. They're ready to sacrifice for their followers, for their vision. Robert says if you have these qualities,
people will naturally follow you. You won't have to force them.
Now let me tell you about law number 16. See the hostility behind the friendly facade. The law of aggression. See the hostility behind the friendly facade. The law of aggression. Robert Greene says every human has aggression inside. This is biological, evolutionary. We all have it. But society taught us aggression is bad, violent, so we suppress it, hide it. But it doesn't disappear. It comes out in indirect ways, in passive-aggressive behavior, in manipulation, in sabotage. Robert says you need to understand people have this aggression inside, no matter how friendly they seem, how nice they seem. And you need to learn to recognize when this aggression is coming out, how it's coming out. Robert tells some signs, passive-aggressive comments, like "I was just saying," or "I was just joking." But their words have a sting, a hidden insult. Second sign is silent treatment. When someone stops talking to you, ignores you. This is also a type of aggression. Third sign is gossip, talking behind your back, spreading rumors. Fourth sign is sabotage, creating obstacles in your work, subtly. Robert's advice is recognize these signs and then handle carefully, because these people are dangerous. They don't confront directly, so you can't deal directly. You also need an indirect approach. Robert says the best way is distance. Stay away from such people. And if you can't stay away, create boundaries, clear boundaries, and maintain them. Law number 17, seize the historical moment, the law of generational myopia. Seize the historical moment, the law of generational myopia. Robert Greene says every generation stays stuck in their time, in their values, in their beliefs, and they can't understand how the world is changing, what the new generation wants, what they think. And this is the biggest limitation. Robert says if you want to stay relevant, stay successful, you need to understand how times are changing, what the trends are, what the new generation's values are. Robert does a very interesting analysis. He explains that every generation is different because their formative years are different. The events they saw, the challenges they faced, shape their worldview. For example, the generation that saw World War has different values. The generation that saw the internet revolution has different values. And the current generation that grew up with social media has different values again. Robert says if you understand these differences, you can connect with every generation, influence every generation. Robert's advice is recognize your generation's limitations and consciously cross them. Learn new things, embrace new technologies, understand new thinking, and most important, listen to the young generation. Learn from them because they're the future. And if you understand them, you're ready for the future. Robert himself does this. Even though he's from an older generation, he's constantly learning new things, interacting with young people, and staying relevant. Now comes the last law. Law number 18. Meditate on our common mortality, the law of denial. Meditate on our common mortality, the law of denial. Robert Greene says the biggest reality is we'll all die one day. This is certain, but we all deny it, ignore it. We think we have unlimited time. We'll do it tomorrow, day after tomorrow. But the truth is, we have limited time, very limited, and nobody knows how much. Robert says accepting mortality, remembering it, is the most powerful practice. Because when you remember you have limited time, your priorities become clear. You don't waste time on meaningless things, on petty fights, on gossip. You focus on things that really matter. Your purpose, your relationships, your growth. Robert says Stoic philosophers practiced this. They meditated daily on their mortality,
and this made them peaceful, focused, fearless. Robert teaches one exercise, memento mori, remember you will die. Every morning when you wake up, remember this, that one day all this will end. Your life, your achievements, your possessions, everything. And then ask yourself, what will I do today? What will I do that's meaningful, that matters? This practice gives you perspective, clarity, and also urgency that you need to do it now. Can't rely on tomorrow. Let me tell you Robert's personal approach. Robert himself faced a stroke, which was very serious, and he thought maybe this is the end. But he survived. And after that, his whole perspective changed. Now he sees every day as a gift, values every moment. And this attitude makes him so productive, so creative. Robert says if you embrace mortality, your life will transform. You'll be more present, more grateful, and more fearless. Now let me give you some practical tips on how you can apply these laws in your life. First tip is observation. Robert says the most important skill is observing people, situations, patterns. The more you observe, the more you'll understand. So become a conscious observer in meetings, in conversations, in social gatherings. Watch people, their body language, their words, their reactions, and notice patterns. Second tip is journaling. Robert himself journals daily, and he says it's very helpful because when you write your thoughts, your observations, they become clearer. Patterns become more visible, and you understand yourself better. So start a journal and write daily. Anything, just write. Third tip is reading. Robert says read history, read biographies, read psychology, because human nature is timeless. The patterns that exist today existed thousands of years ago. And if you read history, biographies, you'll understand these patterns. And then you can better analyze present situations, make better decisions.
Fourth tip is self-awareness. Robert says the most important is knowing yourself, your biases, your emotional triggers, your patterns. Because until you know yourself, you can't understand others. So do self-reflection regularly. Do therapy if needed, and be honest about yourself. Brutally honest. Fifth tip is patience. Robert says understanding human nature, reading people, can't be learned overnight. It takes time, takes practice. There will be mistakes, failures, but slowly you'll get better, sharper. So be patient, be consistent, and keep practicing. Sixth tip is empathy. Robert says empathy is the most powerful tool. If you really want to understand someone, stand in their shoes, see from their perspective, feel their feelings, and only then you'll genuinely understand them, influence them. So develop empathy consciously, deliberately.